Nostalgia is one hell of a drug. Recently, all throughout social media, and especially within basketball media circles, the beginning of 2026 has caused all of the reflexive retrospection that typically happens at the start of any new year. With the 10-year anniversary of what's widely been regarded as one of the best NBA seasons ever, flooding the timeline with memories and nostalgia bait. However, when you turn your attention to the 2026 NBA season, while 2016 is the year that's been catching all of the hype online, if you look closely enough, it started looking like 2018 again for a few players around the association. Particularly in terms of the return to forms that a few big-time names have been experiencing in newer situations with older bodies, a brief look around the league is revealing that while Bron certainly has been the poster boy for timeless basketball, the mid-2010s crop of stars have been aging very gracefully across the league. So in today's video, we're going to take a brief trip down to California, talk about the wave of superstar comeback stories, both big and small, that have taken the league by storm, and uncover the NBA's Fountain of Youth. Our trip back to 2018 begins in Los Angeles with a duo of aging stars fueling a much-needed mid-season turnaround for their franchise. And if you look back at their off-season work in the weeks leading up to the shift, you'll see that they didn't really have much of a choice but to turn back the clock. It's been a rough ride for the Clippers, beginning with their controversial 2025 off-season strategy. After allowing one of their most consistent offensive pieces in Norman Powell to walk, they opted to begin signing proven veteran talent and aging guys to further lean into their name recognition brand of basketball, bringing in Bradley Beal and Brook Lopez, along with trading for John Collins and adding Chris Paul's retirement tour to this massive assortment of names and storylines. And with all these new guys, the Clippers had yet again retooled around a star duo, choosing Kawhi and James Harden as the focal points of this new offense, and hopefully finding more success than they had in previous seasons. But unfortunately, as things tend to do with the Clippers, disaster ensued, and by mid-December, the team had not only waived Chris Paul, but Bradley Beal opted for season-ending hip surgery, and they were 6-21 with 3 separate 5-game losing streaks under their belt. And basketball-wise, their issues were kind of a big reflection of the meandering front office work and age issues that had plagued their franchise for the longest. See, with them having the oldest roster in the league with an average age of 30.7, as you would expect, the Clippers opt for a more, quote, methodical style of basketball. They rank 29th in pace at a 97.62, they have the lowest transition frequency in the league at a 13.3%, and prior to their mid-season turnaround, they had the longest average seconds per possession at a 15.4, and after a defensive rebound at 18.6 seconds. From LA's point of view, this brand of basketball is obviously meant to help mitigate the effects of an 82-game season on their older roster, and play a more structured brand of ball that controls the game, with their two superstars getting time and opportunity to operate in the half-court and slow the game down in a pace and space-driven league. However, the problem early on in the season was that there was a thin line between a methodical approach that probed every offensive option and a stagnant, meandering offense that depended on bailouts and grenade shots, and LA was not very effective at towing that line. Despite their star-studded roster, prior to their turnaround, the Clippers were 28th in points per game at a 110.9, 20th in three-point percentage at 35.1%, and 23rd in offensive rating at a 112.8. With their so-called methodical offense, more often than not, leading to late shot clock possessions where they were forced to take a bad shot or depend on individual excellence from Kawhi or Harden. And nowhere were these struggles more apparent than in their early season matchup with the similarly aging Warriors, in a game that exposed the fact that just because your roster is old doesn't mean you have to play old. From the first possession of the game, their issues were clear. With a stack-out entry for Harden flows into a pin down for a drive for Kawhi that Butler cuts off easily. Then, by the time he pitches it to Bogdan and gets it back for the switch onto Steph, there's only 4.4 seconds left to operate and he ends up launching up a brick. A similar issue happened around the 4-minute mark in the second, where the horn set into a flat pick and roll for Harden and Zubats gets a switch on to Horford, but in the time it takes Harden to probe the defense, stare down the Steph Curry-Zubats mismatch, and reset his ISO, the clock ticks down to 5 seconds before he even starts his size up and bails them out with free throws. Or this play from the first, where the stack out set for Kawhi pushes him all the way to the hash mark, and after he gets blitzed on the 2-man game, Brook Lopez catches with 6 seconds left and has to shoot a double pump contested 3 that hits the heel of the rim. This was prevalent all throughout the game, and with all these late shot clock possessions, it didn't help that Golden State knew where the ball was going to be and was able to load up on these guys late and further complicate these looks. But in this same game, there were a few flashes of potential for LA, particularly when it came to starting their offense slightly earlier in the shot clock. Like on this play from the second, where the immediate Harden two-man game with Zubac gets him downhill for a kick out to Kawhi to attack a closeout and pick up some easy free throws. And especially on their out-of-bounds plays, LA had a decisiveness in their three-man actions that was noticeably absent for the rest of the game. And my favorite set was this play where Zubac's cross screen for Kawhi immediately flows into a zoom action for Harden to get downhill and put up a floater that Zoo can rebound and put back. So while the pieces were clearly there for this team to dominate, they were getting in their own way through the early weeks of the season. But since the middle of December, Kawhi and James Harden have spearheaded a massive turnaround by rewinding the clock and embracing urgency in their offense. For Leonard, he's found himself on a heater, averaging a monster 31.1 points and 2.7 steals per game on 50.6% from the field and 43.1% from three on 8.6 attempts a game. Benefiting from a much more intentional offensive attack that prioritizes searching for downhill momentum and creating advantages earlier in the shot clock and getting him off-ball movement that lets him catch and operate in his spots with more time. In fact, prior to this win streak, Leonard had a 10.8% frequency of shots taken with between 7 and 4 seconds left on the shot clock and a 10.5% frequency on shots with less than 4 seconds, alternatively only having a 14.9 and 15.9% frequency on shots with 22 to 18 and 18 to 15 seconds respectively. And since December 19th when the turnaround began, he's not only jumped to a 17.2% frequency on shots between 22 to 18 and 18 to 15 seconds left on the shot clock, but he's been deadly efficient, holding a 76.4 and 60.4% effective field goal percentage on these shots, and similarly seeing a drop in those late shot clock attempts to an 8.4 and 7.1% frequency respectively. This increased offensive urgency was the storyline behind his 55-point explosion against Detroit, where instead of spending time probing the defense and searching for advantages, Kawhi's initiation of the offense would almost immediately flow into his isolation, or offensive attack where he's still been as unguardable as ever. And on this play from the first quarter, after the quick stop gets LA a transition opportunity, Harden immediately looks for Kawhi's ISO on the empty side, which gets him a quick bucket and some free throws. And this play from a minute later underscores just how poorly LA had been using the shot clock before, as the simple shift to have Kawhi immediately get downhill in transition allows him to have one ISO attempt, reset to get another ISO attempt to survey the defense, hit a cutter, and get James Harden downhill for a signature Euro step finish. And despite Harden falling on a bit of a cold streak since they've started winning, with his downhill burst still clearly there and him having more time to operate and get to the free throw line, James has not only found himself first in the league in assist to pass percentage at an 18.3%, but he's also been 5th in assist points created, and LA is 12.5 points better with him on the floor, which is good to place him in the 98th percentile of all players and represents the perfect yin and yang relationship between the two stars that have turned the clock back and their seasons around. But time isn't just moving in reverse for the Clippers, because over in Sacramento, while they haven't necessarily been good, Russell Westbrook has found the perfect home for his unique style of play, and it couldn't have happened at a better time. As we all know, by the end of his last season with the Denver Nuggets, things didn't look great for Russ. After a season where he over-delivered relative to what was expected of him with his averages of 13.3 points and 6.1 assists and some very impactful playoff performances cementing him as one of the best veteran backups in the league, following their second round loss, Russ's decision to opt out of his contract was very controversial. And while we now know according to Russ that this was due to the front office not wanting him back this year, the mysticism surrounding this situation kept him unsigned dangerously close to the season, with rumors swirling about if we'd seen the last of Russell Westbrook in the NBA. But just days before the season tipped off, Sacramento announced that they'd signed the former MVP on a one-year vet minimum, adding him as a projected depth piece to a talented roster of stars that had routinely underachieved. And while Sacramento has more than continued their losing ways through the season, as far as Russ has been concerned, he's had a return to form that's been fueled by the Kings' unique style of play. Through the first half of the season, Russ has had a significant comeback in terms of production, with his 15.4 points and 6.7 rebounds being his highest point averages since the 2023 season, where he was prominently featured in the Lakers' offense. And his 28.5% usage rate is yet another high since that LA season, and good to place him in the 86th percentile of all point guards. Russ's resurgence has been a product of Sacramento's offense prioritizing half-court speed and downhill aggression from their two initiators in Dennis Schroeder and Russell Westbrook. Westbrook. And with Sabonis' injury removing another big-time offensive option, Russ and Schroeder have shined playing alongside LaVine and DeRozan. In terms of raw stats, Russ's downhill gravity and playmaking has been crucial in Sacramento, with him currently ranking 28th in the league in assist points created and specifically 5th in assist percentage off drives at a 14.8%. And in some of his best performances, it's clear as day why he's been so effective. Arguably his best game of the season came in November, where his shorthanded Kings, who were without LaVine and Sabonis, met with a similarly shorthanded Warriors team, and Russ's downhill looks absolutely broke this game open. The Spain pick and roll sets with Russ, Malik Monk, and a 5-man of your choosing were absolutely unstoppable, and in the second quarter, a pair of plays summed up how unguardable this action was. Beginning around the 9-minute mark, where the Spain setup around half-court gets Russ a running start downhill, with 3 Warriors defenders trying to load up on him, which gets Malik Monk a wide-open triple. Then, just over 2 minutes later, when they run the same action again, the defense is now loading up on Monk as a shooter, getting Russ a clear lane for a dunk that gets goaltended. And they run the same exact action back-to-back in the third, with this first set getting Russ downhill one-on-one with Buddy Hield into a Eurostep drop-off dime for Drew Eubanks, and if you squint hard enough, this looks identical to something we'd see him do back in OKC. Now to reiterate, Sacramento has not been good, and Russ has still had the same turnover issues and poor shot selection that's been a problem for his career. But as far as I'm concerned, it wouldn't be a Russell Westbrook season without them. And both his and the Clippers' bounce-backs have been extremely telling about the league's evolving understanding of longevity as it pertains to stars. Especially when you consider the constant discussions and the ever-increasing bar of what this means in the face of guys like KD, Steph, and LeBron not missing a step as they've aged. The stories of Kawhi, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook can serve as all the more evidence that staying power looks different across the league, and they're all equally valid. So as the season progresses and we may or may not watch the sunset on a few legendary careers, enjoy watching these guys play while you can. Because over in LA, we're getting a small window back into 2018. But with all that being said, that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully I can catch you on the next one.